First, let's look at who I'm serving. If I look at Citi, my client should be at Japan, where the median age maybe 20 years
Yeah.
more than what I have in India. I'm serving India, I'm serving Japan, I'm serving Europe, I'm serving many other countries with different age groups, different levels of technology literacy, and different ways of accessing the system and the way they are doing. When I'm serving these stakeholders, I need to bring in talent which can also appreciate and analyze what they are doing. I haven't seen many GCCs, and we have people across the world. And while I can't get into the specifics because they're all proprietary tools that we are using, these are path defining tools which are capable of matching the best in the market. And we have across data, across applications, we build whatever we build for the world. I mean, if any capability is there and it's not global, it's not a capability.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of GCC Unplugged, where we talk to leaders who are shaping the GCC landscape of the country. And today I have with me Ganesh Baliga, Managing Director and Head of Citi India Solutions, with over 2 decades of experience across strategic tech transformations, global program leadership, and today steering Citi's technology and solutions hub out of India. Ganesh is at the intersection of innovation, talent, and global delivery. Thank you, Ganesh, for joining us. It's a pleasure.
It's my pleasure too, Saurabh. Thank you for having me on your
So, my first question to you, Ganesh, is that you've been with Citi for more than 2 decades, and you must have seen the technology stacks and teams, evolve from legacy systems to cloud, AI, and distributed platforms. You know, navigating which of these changes, we whenever there is a change, people hesitate, accept it or not. So, which of one these were most difficult to accept or mender maybe?
This is a very interesting question. I'll tell a few anecdotes rather than get into it because when changes were happening in the industry, I was at different stages of my career.
Okay.
So it's very hard to say this was difficult, that was difficult. There'll also be a recency bias, but let's just take through last 2 decades. What has the world gone through? Think about it. We had Brexit.
Mm.
Let's look at the banking scenario. We
Right.
had Brexit.
Mm.
We had the global financial crisis,
Mm.
Euro, just three
Big
path
bugs. Yeah.
defining events. You look at technology, when I came out, we had the coexistence of mainframes along with COM, DCOM. Java was just starting off.
Mm.
.NET, the way it is not there. So we had only two tier. Client server that was it, two levels.
Mm.
Now we have multi-tiers, AI, we have absolute cloud-based architecture, which means small micro-container sized applications are being deployed by hundreds and thousands. So the change control velocity is much higher. So it's very hard to put in a fact that one phase was more difficult than the other. But I think the biggest shock that I had personally was with COVID. Okay. Because there were a couple of things. We were navigating a lot of planned disruptions like the Y2K, Euro.
Yeah.
We had some plans. Technology, it evolved. COVID was a shocker. February 2020, when we were told we can't come to the office anymore. And I remember when I came back to India in 2011, data used to be expensive in India. We did not see so many remote roles in India. But here was a shocker at multiple levels in the system. I wouldn't say that was the most difficult to navigate, and there could be recency bias. But to me, that shocker was something that I feel grateful I am on the other side. I think the world is grateful it's on the other side, and I hope we continue to take some of the lessons that have come out of it. But it was truly a lesson in global resiliency,
Mm.
not just for banking, but all of us in humanity.
Mm.
Because in an interconnected digital world, we had to take a shock which we were not as prepared for an event that happened almost 100 years ago.
Mm.
Pre mobiles, pre internet, pre digital,
Mm.
pre everything. And we came on the other side. So,
Mm. No, no, absolutely. I mean, that was something which was not in the living memory of the world, honestly, and no one was prepared
Yeah,
for
and
that.
even if you had living memory, the previous pandemic that
Yeah,
happened was
100 years.
before so many things.
Correct.
Now everything that we take for granted
Mm,
was not even invented then.
right.
So it was a very interesting part to navigate. I was speaking to the hospitals for my colleagues, and
Mm,
one side we were looking at where will the power fail, what people are doing, fascinating uh, flux of events that were happening.
mm.
But since then, our resilience has improved. So I
Mm.
was speaking to several colleagues. I think it's been a defining event in the last decade or so.
So, Citi's presence in India, it predates the broader use of the term GCC. And so, how has India's role, transitioned from execution to strategic ownership within the global banking platform?
That's an interesting question, particularly for Citi, because when you
Mm,
look at Citi in India,
mm,
we have been there for more than 120 years.
mm.
Not many of our other banks can
For here.
claim such a historic heritage in India. Even when we say the GCC, what we call a GCC these days, Citi was among the pioneers. Our first setup was in 1985
Mm,
in Mumbai, when people were not thinking of India as a strategic talent location.
mm,
And that has been a tradition that has moved through. And I am sitting here on the shoulders of many of our colleagues in the past who
mm,
have done some great work. And for Citi, it has been very traditional.
mm.
And our alumni are working in several places. Many of the CTOs for many private banks went from Citi. Many of the operations guys went from CSC. So I wouldn't like to think of it as a recent
Yeah, of
situation for
course.
Citi.
Mm,
And Citi has always been a global bank which is respecting talent no matter where it comes from.
mm,
You look at our seniors, we are truly a global bank.
mm.
And as a function of that, India also, we have looked at it as a huge hub for talent. And I'm very proud of our contribution to the broader ecosystem also.
Mm,
I won't look at it as something recent that has moved from execution to strategy.
mm,
We are as much a part of any other side, like which operates for Citi anywhere in the world.
mm,
So that's how I look at this conversation and
mm.
our presence in India for what we call GCCs these days. But we had different names.
Well, definitely. I mean, that's an evolving consensus amongst leaders that, you're one of the officers. You're not a center or an
Correct.
officer unit anymore. You are the
Absolutely.
part of the enterprise. And, you just talked about a product and you talked about innovation happening from India. So tell us about a, product that, was built here in India completely that scaled worldwide and had a good, greater impact in terms of in the enterprise ecosystem.
So we have many, not just one, in the enterprise. So let me talk about a distinguished engineer program that we have in
Yeah.
Citi. So we don't have more than a handful of distinguished engineers. There are around 40 or 50, and each one of them has to build a product that is used by multiple products across Citi. So it's not just creation of a system, but you almost have to advocate, sell, build, and convince other colleagues to make sure this is a part of your ecosystem. We have four distinguished engineers from Citi in the Indian office,
Okay.
and we have people across the world. And while I can't get into the specifics because they're all proprietary tools that
Mm-hmm.
we are using, these are path defining tools which are capable of matching the best in the market.
Okay.
And we have across data, across applications, we build whatever we build for the world. I mean, if any capability is there and it's not global, it's
Mm.
not a capability.
Right.
So that's how I look at it.
And how do you ensure that whatever is built here or your team here are co-owners of the outcomes?
Oh, that is a relatively simple defined process because we don't build anything that's outside the book of work.
Mm,
But once it's something that is a part of the book of work, then we need to make sure we do our best to make sure there's no duplication. There's
mm,
the challenge is many of us can go the same path.
mm,
We try our best to ensure there's no duplication and one team feeds off the other. And then you do that. Whoever is the builder is the owner. There's nothing that says where I come from is less important than what I bring to the table.
mm,
And that has been a consistent philosophy
mm,
we have used also. So there's nothing that distinguishes somebody who's a builder, who's an owner from Chennai or a Pune or a Mumbai to somebody who's in any other location.
mm. You've articulated recently in the past about trust-driven AI, if I'm not wrong, yeah, for enterprise usage. So tell us about it, and how does one ensure clarity of vision amid all this hubris around AI? Honestly.
It's an interesting question, and honestly, I wish I knew the
Answer.
answer for sure because AI, by definition, is probabilistic and not deterministic.
Mm,
But what I'm very proud and certain of is a couple of things that we have done. We and it's important for us as an industry because if when it comes to credit scoring, when it comes to the compliance side, if our AI has bias or it has hallucinations, it's a huge risk to the ecosystem,
mm,
not just for us, but more across the industry. And if you look at application of AI, it's not that it's just being used to, create content where probably the capability of causing harm is probably much lower
mm,
than in a pure banking scenario. If I'm using it in anti-money laundering or KYC, and it's not just for Citi across the industry or credit scoring, some of these things, then it really matters that we do it right. So we have enough safeguards. Our global risk organization is a part of the conversation. A lot of testing takes place before we approve anything, and we want to make sure we are on the right side of regulation
mm,
in every country of the world where we are deploying these
mm,
use cases and models. So that way, we are ensuring first at the point of time of picking up the case, is it suitable for further development? Then when we develop, we have enough checks to make sure it matters. And before deployment, our risk team gets involved.
mm,
And then we make sure it is scaled and at an enterprise level and we deploy it.
mm,
Uh, we also, the other thing that I'm very proud of is there has been a lot of democratization of AI. When you look at most tools, one thing is a top-down approach which gets to specific use cases. But then people, all of us get tools to use.
mm,
And when we get tools to use, we reimagine how work happens.
mm,
And Citi has invested in both giving tools to everybody and training us on prompt engineering.
mm,
And these are global numbers. There's nothing that is. So these are very much a part of the conversation we have everywhere, right from New York in the board results to somebody who's just joining us, say today or on Monday,
mm,
and saying these are the tools with you. Reimagine how the world looks like
mm,
if you were starting the site.
mm,
And
mm,
that and then before we deploy, we go through the same conversations. Is the use case fit for purpose? Can I develop it well? Can I deploy it well? Have I measured the risk? And post deployment, we also have some checks because models are being upgraded constantly and we want to make sure we are with the right set of models.
mm,
And we are relatively agnostic to what happens outside the noise and hubris to the point
mm.
you made because every day you see one model has become more popular.
Right.
We have now lingo like DeepSeek moment,
Yeah,
Chat GPT
I
moment,
know, I
which
know.
is all something that has come in the last
Mm,
few years. Now we are going through Claude moments,
right.
and I'm sure this is not the last.
This is it.
But we want to make sure whatever we do from identification to creation to post creation monitoring, we have the guardrails in place.
Mm,
And right now, I believe we do have it.
mm. And I think it's more important in a space where you operate, which is
Absolutely.
banking. And also tell me, I mean, if with, has the AI moment of whatever, be it cloud or whichever cloud or whichever one, and if you put in, the data regulations across the world, you have something in the Europe, something in the US, now you have something else in India. Has it become more complicated, or you've been able to? How have you been able to? manage it?
Firstly, I wouldn't know every regulation,
Yeah.
but as I said, before we deploy every model, it goes through the checks of the relevant departments to do that. Has it become very complicated? 1000% true, right? You
Mm,
think about it.
mm,
What has GDPR done?
mm.
India recently we passed an act on content
DPDP.
that we
Yeah.
are creating. We had DPDP, which happened a few
Mm,
years ago. You look at Denmark, if somebody is doing a deepfake, then how we can be sued is very different to what happens in some other part.
mm,
Every part of the world, we are learning to cope with technology.
mm,
And some of the changes that AI are bringing is path breaking. And because these are path breaking, the regulations is quickly trying to react and see what we can do. And because of that, not just in our space, but in every space, it becomes a hugely important thing for the population we serve to both adopt AI and to make sure it's safe,
mm.
because that's the only way we can scale, compete in the market, as well as provide the benefits of AI to the many stakeholders whom we serve in the organization.
You talked about AI and you talked about democratizing AI for
Mhm.
everyone. So how do you ensure that innovation isn't siloed, in such within the tech teams alone, but it's embedded across business, compliance, risk, and the other consumer facing, especially for you, for Citi, I mean.
You look at how tech has evolved. Let's take that much before me, and I've heard this, read this, etc. There were people who had rooms, access to the rooms where they could put some cards and move.
Mm,
Today, I don't know many kids who eat their food without seeing the mobile phones,
mm,
and they know to switch on and off mobile.
right,
That's just evolution of technology. A function of that society is what we bring into the world.
mm,
So most people, and in India, people are really tech savvy, but across the world, your digital existence matters, and we see it with a lot of people with different ages, their ability to work with tech changes. How do we translate it into the work that we do
mm,
beyond technology? Firstly, these days everybody believes that they know technology.
mm,
Whether I'm in tech or non-tech, it doesn't
mm,
matter.
mm,
Everybody is an expert. Everybody can go to one LLM and find out what they need to do,
mm,
and three LLMs can give a different answer. From a city perspective, coming to your specific question, we operate in this milieu where everybody knows and everybody is excited about technology.
mm,
So we do create either episodic events where we have things like hackathons, people having questions, etc., where people can participate. We also encourage a lot of training for people who are not in technology because they bring in a lot of domain expertise. And once it reaches a stage where technology can participate, do participate and see. And at the end of the day, we exist because we are serving our customer. And whoever knows the customer the best and the closest would be able to articulate the use case best for the organization. So we do conduct hackathons, we have cross product trainings, we have people learning, and we do have a lot of mobility. So some people from technology have moved to roles in other parts of the bank. People from other parts of the bank also have moved into technology.
mm,
So that leads to its own kind of diffusion and networks that lend itself to innovation.
mm.
So a few things happening like that. And if technology remains only with technology, or if we say
Yeah.
innovation is a technology function, then we are probably missing a huge portion of taking it global
Mm,
or for the masses where it matters.
mm. No, of course, I mean, democratizing, tech and reskilling and upskilling the entire talent pool is what probably is required to take the entire business towards its goal. And that brings me to an interesting question which you have talked about is about generations from millennials
Oh, yeah.
to Gen Alpha in your I've seen in your post. So how do you manage this generational diversity, if I may say, within the tech and talent pool that you have?
First, let's look at who I'm serving. If I look at Citi, my client should be at Japan, where the median age may be 20 years
Yeah.
more than
Correct.
what I have in India. I'm serving India, I'm serving Japan, I'm serving Europe, uh, I'm serving many other countries with different age groups, different levels of technology literacy, and different ways of accessing the system and the way they are thinking. When I'm serving these stakeholders, I need to bring in talent which can also appreciate and analyze what they are thinking.
Mm,
Let's look at the other side, which is the talent pool. First is whom we are serving as stakeholders, including regulators, who
mm,
typically would be people with a lot of depth and domain experience. The other side is the availability of talent. We have people who wouldn't have seen a mobile in their 30s
mm,
to kids who were born like my daughter. I don't know how often she takes money in her pocket because without her phone, she thinks there is no money.
mm,
So that's a very sharp contrast.
mm.
And then I have, say, my seniors in my family, many of them would be scared to put net banking in the mobile.
Correct. Yeah.
And we have both generations and we have to serve both of them across the world. So when we do that, so the first part is why. The second part is how we are doing it. We are trying our best to make sure each generation is sensitive to the other. We created with episodic events. We have a very vibrant generations network who I must thank HR, along with many other networks that city is very proud to support inclusion across the world. And we create episodic events where we ask people to go back in time or look at future and what it will look like, imagine, create, content around it. Also look at what would be their needs. For example, if I have a colleague, an experienced colleague who has seen a lot of domain and who perhaps wants to know about is at a life stage where they need to decide which syllabus they need to put their child. And it's a very common question.
Mm,
Or what are the places where, what would be the problems with seniors if you're a carer? We try to get those speakers, create events, and a kind of sensitivity develops within the organization. And I would like to believe we have done a good job because we have a lot of people staying longer in the organization. And they are all people who would have passed through different stages in their digital journey in their life,
mm,
who with a different digital footprint. Uh, so they can appreciate what our stakeholders must also be going.
mm.
So a few episodic events, very clear call out to people that we need to be sensitive. I think just to answer it in brief,
Mm,
after the why and what.
mm. And you talked about UPI. You know, I mean, of course, the world is taking note of it, and the other public infrastructure also that we have, especially in the fintech space, in the banking space. So, how is Citi engaging with this ecosystem, and how are you benefiting out of what India offers in terms of in fintech technology, if I may say.
The society has four legal entities in India. One is pure serving the Indian ecosystem. And I'll just talk about our small remit in the what we call the city solution centers in India, which is the GCC part. It's an interesting world. A lot of payments talent, the fintech talent, and user journeys are very well understood and appreciated by some of the startups in this space. So we get a lot of talent. We do appreciate some of the work that's happening, and there will be some events where we are inviting some of these people who help us to reimagine how we can take through this journey. So these are the few places where we are hugely benefiting from and learning from the ecosystem.
Yeah, no, because I mean that's the beauty of an ecosystem when it develops. It benefits all the stakeholders who are there
Very
and
sure.
who are around there. So and so what's your perspective on the future of GCCs in India? Will the model remain similar? Because we have seen it change as we've
Mhm.
talked about it. City itself predates the term GCC,
Yeah.
in many shapes and sizes. We have seen this area evolve, and are we headed towards a new definition of distributed global work? I think that's where already some
I
leaders
would
think
believe
we
that.
are already there.
I would believe that we are. So there are. So if you look at the evolution, the first part was when we did not have enough digital infrastructure,
Mm,
but India was going after volume because people believed it was cheaper to ship work from
mm,
location A to India. That is where we began. Today, India is world's leading digital infrastructure, so India can serve the world more broadly. Demographics have changed over the last 3 decades. Let's say these have been the decades of our evolution. You look at many parts of the world, new talent is not as easily available.
mm,
Then there is this AI that is coming, which we need to grapple with. And India has been a very technophilic country, and digital access and digital presence, the necessity of being able to use digital products is far more in India than many other countries. So that puts the world which looks at talent, where they want a workforce that can last for 10, 15 years
mm,
to look at, suddenly to look at India with a lot more interest.
mm,
And the last part, which I haven't seen many GCCs talk about, is India as a market.
mm,
We think about it, we are a sub $3,000 per capita
mm,
economy and sub 5 trillion. And if we just even think of 10,000, which is a middle income economy, and probably 30 trillion where we need to be, we have to go 6 times. What that will mean is even Indian large companies with global ambitions will be setting up their shared service centers in India to
mm,
cater to the global south. I don't know what it will be called because it was called shared service, back office, everything.
mm.
What is called is much less relevant, but a lot of serving the world and serving every stakeholder for the world, which is the philosophy I'd like us to think for City,
Mm,
would be very common for Indian GC.
mm.
I hope that has touched upon what you are
Yeah, yeah, of
looking at.
course. I mean, I just said that we are having different moments every year, so we don't know what really will change things materially in the coming future. But yes, I think the way the GCC leaders are at least thinking of the setups in India right now. I think shared global shared work is which is I'm also envisaging. Final question to you, Ganesh, and if we were to meet in 5 years, I know, again, we have talked about every year things changing because of some moment, but leaving aside, the AI part, if you had to look at where city solutions, how would you be telling the story about solutions 5 years from now and the overall ecosystem of India?
So I would like to think we should continue to serve, and I'd like to touch every stakeholder for City from City Solution Center because City has invested in India, it has believed in India over 4 decades, and we don't want to be left behind because India presents an interesting demographic with a good democracy and now great data center
Yeah,
provisions
I
also
know.
post budget. So I'd like to think we are here for City across the world. From an industry perspective, I hope and I'm sure there'll be a lot more intellectual property created in India. I hope a lot of tier 2 towns, what we call tier 2 cities and towns, will have a lot of these centers so people, there's a lot more value and employment generated.
Mm,
I'd also like to move away from saying no AI because I'd like to think post AI world, India will produce a lot of small language models which are very specific for the industry, very specific for the organization, which can be generated and used by India or people sitting in the Indian offices for global corporations that will be used across the world.
mm,
That is another dream that I have. And I also am very firmly of the opinion Indian market would be among the top 5 markets for a lot of global companies,
mm,
especially in my industry, where less than 10% Indians are investing in stock market.
mm,
Insurance is not a very common product that many Indians have. Uh, we are aging also by 2050. We need great retirement solutions and young people who are coming out. We have know the value of personal finance and we can really make a difference. And when we make a difference to India, we are making a difference to a good chunk of humanity, around
Right.
15-20% of humanity. And I am sure GCCs or whatever we'll be calling them in 5 years would be very important office for every organization in the world who has partnered with India on our journey of progress, which is in a way partnering with humanity in humanity's journey of progress.
True. I mean, uh, when something, the scale of India is so that it promises learning for the entire world. And you
Very true.
rightly said that, intellectual arbitrage is what is going to rule in the coming days. And that is where I believe the ecosystem is moving. So thank you so much, Ganesh, for joining
Thank you,
us. It
Saurabh.
was a pleasure speaking
Thank
with you.
My pleasure, and thank you for choosing me to do the honors with your esteemed publication. And I'm looking forward to where we go in 5 years. Let's stay in touch.
Of course, we all are. Thank you so much.
Thank you.